one of the most significant factors that affect restoration.
This cascading effect on the restoration finance.
The issue of rights of access and rights of ownership and control by communities.
But the task would be how to bring those governance and equity issue into the operation.
The data is not always documented.
Next year, it will be pivotal in terms of the lessons learned.
Good evening, afternoon, morning. The last time we saw each other, we were in a workshop discussing land degradation neutrality targets. And as someone who's like working in the area of supporting implementation of multilateral environmental agreements, these targets are important to the bigger restoration conversation that is currently going on among member states of the UN and parties to the CCD and CBD and FCCC conventions, and the implementation of those multilateral environmental agreements with the support of agencies like ourselves and UNDP, who are supporting design of projects and initiatives for financing by the likes of the GEF, Adaptation Fund, GCF, and other similar types of support. So this conversation about restoration has really picked up momentum in the last few years, especially with the declaration of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. And many different types of stakeholders are contributing to the action on restoration. And I think restoration means a lot of things to many different people. In fact, this is one of the conversations we're having a lot internally in UNDP. What is restoration? What do you seek to achieve through restoration? But I wanted to chat to you about some elements and factors of restoration that perhaps get left out of the conversation and maybe potentially get ignored, relating in particular to the social elements of it. What do you think are some of the most significant, maybe often ignored social and sometimes even political factors that could ultimately affect restoration and can determine whether a restoration intervention or initiative succeeds or not?
So it's really good to hear about that, the fact that restoration becomes a central many development projects, and that gives us a lot of optimism. But by this, during the 5 years that are left to achieve the Sustainable Development Agenda, we will really see the results of restoration. On ecosystem restoration, I think there are several factors, and we can even policy or political factors. I would say it's really the macro level what is important for the restoration. We see that very often the political, how stable the political system in the countries. We see the political regimes moving, just flipping over the night from negative to positive towards the environmental agenda, but also vice versa. And that changes the political agenda within the country. But if a country is really in a big economy, if we're talking about the countries, ODA countries, then it's also having this cascading effect on the restoration finance available for the beneficiaries countries. And we already see some reports coming out that there are restoration projects that are being suspended or the activities being reduced due to the lack or the interruption in the financial flows for the restoration. So that has a big effect. And this is something what we're documenting in the project preparation phase as a risk and assumption. And unfortunately, those risk and assumption becomes now materializing in some instances. What is also important, and this is also being considered now in the CBD and the Convention on Biological Diversity more and more, is the governance and equity issues for the restoration. So really seeing the governance as when the planning happens at the scale, and it's inclusive, and especially for the large scale restoration programs, this is very important. And the equity, to the extent um, of how inclusive the planning for the ecosystem restoration was designed, how much the indigenous people and local communities, their traditional territories, but also their traditional knowledge were considered in all phases of the preparation, implementation, and then of their ecosystem restoration projects is very important. And as you may know, just a few weeks ago, the CBD had its first meeting of the subsidiary body on the Article 8J and other provisions. And that meeting was negotiating the voluntary guideline, how to strengthen the the legal and the policy framework for recognizing the role of indigenous peoples and local communities in ecosystem restoration, spatial planning, and the area-based conservations. Once it's finalized, we will have the first guideline, a voluntary guideline on this. And then I think for us, really, the task would be how to bring those governance and equity issue into the operation. So into the technical guidelines. So this is really an important factor. I would say that another important factor is the economic conditions, and these. If you look globally in terms of the restoration pledges, we see that most of the restoration pledges and commitments, in terms of relative or in absolute numbers, they're from the global south. And at the same time, the global south are the countries that are still producing a lot of, they rely on exporting their goods. That's how the economy is based. So, and at the same time, so now those countries are in this conflicting situation when the restoration responsibilities and still production and exporting and in this way sustaining the economy and local livelihoods is become important. We wouldn't say that it's contradictory, but it's still in sometimes in the conflict, and we see that the tension is quite high when it comes to implementing the regulation that try to reduce the land conversion, but still not putting the barriers for the international trade. So I think that factor is really is something that is not commonly discussed when we're planning the restoration, especially big scale restoration projects.
Yeah, and I think this point also speaks a little bit to the issue of rights of access and rights of ownership and control by communities. Let's say in a forest landscape where the forest sector might be very important for the economy, whether it's producing cacao or coffee or whatever it is. When we come into this situation where there is a bit of tension between economic importance and priority of a sector that is based on that ecosystem or landscape, and the issues of community livelihoods and access and rights. It's a very challenging thing actually when we develop programs and initiatives in this social and environmental safeguards element is not really strong, especially where indigenous people are involved. And in some cases, there is even sort of lack of recognition of those indigenous people and their rights and their historic use of the ecosystem. So that tension becomes very, very important and can be a major determinant, as you say, of whether an initiative is going to work or not, even if on paper it might look good.
Yes, so for this topic, when we were discussing the voluntary guideline, in fact, the new subsidiary body has chosen this as was agreed that it will be the first task that the subsidiary body will take to consider. before it moves on with the rest of its new work program. For CBDs or conventional biological diversity, as you know, we're now in the reporting cycle. So it's the 7th national reporting cycle. And in fact, we're really looking forward to the national reports that will be submitted. And next year, the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration will be also reporting on its 5 years work plan. And we really hope that the next year will be for the ecosystem restoration community will be, I would say, pivotal in terms of the knowledge and the experiences and the lessons learned, what we can achieve.
I do wonder if there's a little question in there for the seventh reports, whether, to ask member states to sort of highlight some of the challenges they're having. Because I think often, as you said before, member states tend to shy away from reporting some of the negative things, or things that don't go well. And certainly the case with a lot of restoration cases. The failure is not always documented, but it would be good to glean from those reports from member states, because that voice of member states is particularly important in highlighting, what didn't go right.
Yes, indeed. We hope that we will be able to see this information coming in the national reports. But at the same time, the global review will also pull together the information from other MEAs in international organizations. So in this way, we hope that we'll be able to see the synergies across the Rio Convention, and because the ecosystem restoration is really cross-cutting, um, in the Rio Convention and other biodiversity related conventions. And so we also would be able to see how much we are um, duplicating, complementing each other, and so what could be done in these next 5 years for us that we can really do better jointly, um, and really achieving everybody's goals.
Yes, absolutely.